Unit 7, Part 4. Okay, so let's go through exercise 1. You should read all these definitions, they're important. This is the first exercise from the back of Unit 7, page 139 on to 140. Using the definition of substitution instance just given, decide whether the statements under each form are substitution instances of that form. So I just talked about this in Unit 7, Part 3 towards the end and did one example. But let's go through these. Okay, so like I said in the last part, what you do to answer this question, right, the question is for each part, A, B, C, D, E, F, is this statement of this form? Is this statement of the form presented above the line or not? And the way you answer is you say the form, right, and then see if that statement does match each of these parts. Okay, that'll get clearer as I do it. Okay, so to state the form, for one, what is this? It's a conditional where the consequent is a negation. Now, this is crucial. You have to attend to the fact that there is a negation in the form, right? The consequent has to be a negation, right? So let's just jump ahead to say 1C, right? Immediately I can say that 1C is not of this form. Why? Because while it is a conditional, right? So far so good, the consequent is not a negation, right? Similarly, also I can rule out 1E, right? 1E is not, the consequent is not a negation. Forgive the screaming children. The consequent is not a negation, right? So it can't be of this form. That's crucial because several of your rules have negations in them. Most importantly, modus tollens and disjunctive syllogism. Right? Look at the forms for modus tollens. It's given the rule of modus tollens, very, very crucial rule. You'll be using it lots. Given a conditional and given the negation of the consequent, you're entitled to infer the negation of the antecedent. So modus tollens in both its second premise and conclusion, right? That is, in that rule that is the form, there's a negation in both the second premise and the conclusion. There's a negation in the form of the rule at 2 points. Disjunctive syllogism. There's one negation, right? The disjunctive syllogism says, right, two premises and a conclusion, given a disjunction and given the negation of one of the antecedents, given the disjunction and given the negation of one of the disjuncts, you're entitled to infer the other disjunct. Okay? So that tells you, or you should think, I only have a possible application of disjunctive syllogism if one of the two premises I'm looking at is in fact a negation, right? The major operator of the second premise in disjunctive syllogism is a negation, right? The form of that statement is a negation. So you can only use modus tollens when one of your premises is a negation, and the other one has to be a disjunction. Okay, so let's keep going. How about 1A? So we just went over how in the last part, in part 3, how you are entitled to infer the same statement for different variables. So I can substitute A in for P, I can substitute A in for Q. Yes, 1A is of this form. It is a conditional where the consequent is a negation. Okay, you answer and then pause. Is 1B of this form? Pause, unpause. Okay, yes it is, right? This formula is a conditional and the consequent of the conditional is a negation, right? So notice here, my P is not A. Can I do that? Is that right? Yes, you can, right? P is a sentential variable taking as substitution instances any formula, right, of whatever complexity, right? But the not A, right, see in the order of construction of this formula B, You built not A, and then you made the conditional with not A and not B, right? So you've substituted not A for P, and that's perfectly fine. It's a complex formula, but P is a variable, takes as a substitution instance any formula, no matter how complex, right? And the major operator is a conditional, so I've substituted in not A for P, but what have I substituted in for Q? Answer that. What have I substituted for Q? B, right? Not B, right? Not B, that is not what I substitute Q, but just B, because this negation is part of this form, right? Okay, how about C? 1C, I already said this, no, because the consequent is not a negation. How about D? Yes, D is of this form. Why? Because here my Q, what's my Q? It's B and C. It's the conjunction of B and C. That's legal. But what is D? D is a conditional where the consequent is a negation, right? The consequent is a negation, yes? Because the major operator of the subformula that is the consequent, the major operator is the negation. Compare that to E, right? Here, is it the case that E is a conditional where the consequent is a negation? No, it is not. The consequent is not a negation. The consequent is a disjunction. And every form is either this form or that form. You can't be, in this case, you can't be two different forms here, right? So this is a disjunction. It is not a negation, right? So this is not of the form. And here's F. What about this? Is F of the form of 1? Yes, it is, right? It is a conditional, and the consequent is a negation, right? So I've substituted for the Q is just A hook B. I've substituted A hook B for Q. What have I substituted for P? Not brackets A hook B, close brackets. That is a legal formula, right? That whole thing is my P. All right, I'll continue in the next part.